They thought I was too slow to notice how their eyes cut through me the moment I stepped into that house. Not a single word had been spoken yet, but I already knew I was being measured like some charity case somebody dragged in from the church pantry. And I let them think it. I lowered my shoulders, softened my voice, held my old purse with both hands like I was scared it might get lost in this big fine house, all while watching everything. My name is May Thompson. I'm 58 years old out of Birmingham, Alabama, and I've learned that the most dangerous thing you can ever do is underestimate a quiet black woman who don't speak fast. Before we begin, answer me one thing in the comments. Have you ever walked into a house and instantly felt that something wasn't right, even though everyone was smiling at you? I want to know. My son, Derek, stood beside me, nervous like a boy taking his first driving test, even though he's 32 with a good job and a calm spirit like his daddy used to have. He kept glancing at me, making sure I behaved. That's the word he used before we walked in. Mama, please behave. I just nodded. I didn't bother reminding him. I raised him. He don't even know half the things I know. And that girl, Aliyah, my future daughter-in-law, ran ahead to hug her mama before even introducing me. I noticed that first. I notice everything. They were already sitting in the living room, legs crossed, polished and perfect like a page out of some modern Southern magazine. Her mother, slim, elegant, eyes sharp enough to slice bone. Her father, straight-backed, nodding once like a judge about to deny bail. And that sister, arms folded, barely looked me in the eye. It didn't bother me. In fact, I expected worse. Hello, Mrs. Thompson. Please, come in, make yourself comfortable, the mother said. Polite smile. Fakest sweetness I've heard since church ladies asked for donations they used on themselves. I stepped in slow, like I was unsure where to sit. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to see who would gesture for the lowest seat. The father pointed to the far end of the sofa, near the plant. Away from the center. Away from the conversation. A place to nod and disappear. I softly thanked him, and took it. Like I said, I let them think they had control. The air had that expensive rich people smell. Not food. Not warmth. Something staged. Something wiped down before we arrived. I saw no signs of life. No pictures of laughing children. No scuffed floors. Nothing that felt like real family. This was a performance space, and we were the audience, not the guests. And then, the first cut. Oh, I hope traffic wasn't *** too stressful for you, coming all the way from that area. That area. Not Birmingham. Not my street. Just. That area. I smiled. Not at all, I said. I've been going there my whole life. The way her eyebrow lifted, she didn't like that answer. She wanted me grateful to breathe their air. She wanted me apologizing just for blackening their doorway, politely of course. I stayed small. Calm. But inside. I folded that moment away. That's when I saw it, Aliyah's faint embarrassment. She didn't defend me. Didn't even look my way. She smoothed her dress. Adjusted braids. Like she wanted to disappear from the fact her boyfriend's mama didn't match the room. That was the moment I knew, this visit wasn't just about getting to know me. This was evaluation. We hadn't been seated 2 minutes when the father began. So, May, what do you do? Not what do I love. Not what do I value. What do I do? I rubbed my hands together slow, like searching for the right words. Well, right now I do a little homecraft work, church organizing, too. Nothing too complicated. A flicker of relief crossed his face. I wasn't competition. He thought I was simple. Good. Her mother tilted her head. Oh, that's sweet. Sweet. To some people, that word is not a compliment. Aliyah kept smiling, but her jaw was tight. Like she was praying I didn't talk too much. Derek stayed quiet, shame growing behind his eyes. The kind of shame children feel when they begin forgetting the soil they came from, standing in someone else's polished castle. I breathed in slow, soft. Then let it go like I accepted my place. Truth is, I'd already learned more about this family in 60 seconds than most learn in a year. I didn't know yet what they were hiding. But I knew they were hiding something. And that, more than anything, is why I stayed quiet. I sat there with my hands loosely folded in my lap, soft, small, exactly as they expected, while my eyes had already mapped every spirit in that room. Alia's mother leaned forward like she was graciously including me in a conversation, but her words carried the kind of weight meant to measure, not welcome. So May. Derek tells us you're very humble people. That pause. That intentional drag between you're and very. That wasn't admiration. That was classification. I nodded gently. We come from people who don't need much to sleep peaceful at night. Alia's mother blinked. Twice. She wasn't expecting sole response. She was expecting gratitude for the insult. She changed the topic smoothly. Alia has always been a woman of very high standards. We raised her to be intentional with her choices. I smiled faintly. We raised Derek the same. She didn't like that either. Meanwhile, the father hadn't said a word since asking what I do. He was studying me like a tax form. Useful or liability, expense or investment. And Alia, that girl sat there smiling, nodding, perfect posture, but watching her mother for approval before she spoke. Not once did she soften the energy for my sake. She didn't lean in to make me comfortable. She didn't say, "Mama, you have to try her sweet tea sometime. She makes the best in the world." Not even a small bridge. That silence told me more about her than any compliment would have. Then came the first little test. "Would you like some lemon water, May?" the mother asked. "We don't do sodas or sweet teas in this house. We try to avoid unnecessary sugars. Health is priority." That was targeted. I knew it. She knew it. Translation: we're not like your kind. We are disciplined. Refined. Above softness and soul. I smiled soft. "Oh, don't you worry. I left sweet tea in the car. Just in case I needed it." The father actually snorted out a sound before catching himself. The mother's smile cracked, barely. Alia froze. "Well," the mother murmured. "That's certainly practical." I sat there, almost peacefully. Let them think I was harmless. That's when the conversation shifted. From evaluation to probing. "So May," the father finally spoke again. "We've heard interesting things about your neighborhood. Must be a very different environment from what Alia is used to." Different. And there it was, another word holding hands with insult. I tilted my head. Different can teach you things same never will. Nothing. Nobody responded. But their silence was louder than any reaction would have been. Then slowly, gracefully, the mother went for the real cut. She turned to Alia. Not me. "Alia, you remember what we talked about, making sure your children grow up with the right kind of influence?" She said it like I wasn't sitting 3 feet away. Not even respectfully turning her voice aside. That wasn't just disrespect. That was dehumanization. There are ways people speak when they don't consider you present. Not just physically, but socially. Spiritually. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just judgment. This was rejection, planned long before I arrived. But I did not flinch. Instead, I turned to Alia. Direct. Easy. Soft. But sharp enough to slice marble. "Baby, tell me something real quick. Did you ever ask my son about his mama before you invited me here today?" The room froze. Alia's smile faltered. Just a flicker, but it was there. Her mother's back straightened like a warning bell. The father's eyes sharpened. I stayed calm. Because I meant the question. Not to beg for my place. But to confirm who never intended to give it. By the next Sunday, the house didn't feel like home anymore. The smell of fried cinnamon toast still floated from the kitchen like always, but it didn't feel warm. It felt staged. Like someone had taken all the love out the air, but left the decorations behind. And I didn't know why. It was barely 8 in the morning when I walked into the living room and saw Mima sitting on the edge of the couch, not talking, not crying. Just sitting. Like she was somewhere far away. That's when I noticed. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching it. Her coffee was going cold in her hands. and her left foot was shaking fast, like storm wind before thunder. "Ma, you okay?" She flinched like she didn't even hear me come in. "Oh, baby. Yeah, I'm good." She said the words. But her eyes were somewhere else. I sat across from her. Silence. Heavy. Thick. But not peaceful this time. I watched her stare at absolutely nothing, like she was listening for something she hoped wasn't true. "Something on your mind?" I asked softly. She didn't answer. She just inhaled, long and slow, like she was bracing for impact. Then all I got was, "People change too fast these days." That's it. No name. No context. Just that one sentence, like she was talking to herself, not me. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't about stress. Or bills. Or the world being heavy. This was about someone. Someone who made my mama, the strongest woman I've ever known, look uneasy. And before I could even ask another question, the front door opened. He walked in. And instantly, like a candle smothered by a sudden gust, Mama shut herself all the way off. Her eyes went neutral. Voice flat. Shoulders locked. She didn't even look at him. Just like that, I knew she had stopped feeling safe enough to feel. He smiled like nothing was wrong. Said morning like it was any other day. But I felt it. The shift. The forced calm. The unspoken war. Not out loud yet, but it was there. And I swear to you, I felt the beginning of something breaking. So soft you could almost miss it. But once you hear that first crack, you know the shatter is coming. I wish I could tell you that morning passed quietly. It didn't. Not in the loud way, not in explosions, not in yelling, but in that heavy, suffocating silence where emotions are no longer spoken, just felt through every movement. He sat at the table flipping through the newspaper like life was normal. Like he didn't just walk in and shift the air. Mama moved around the kitchen, but not like herself. No humming. No soft little gospel under her breath like she always did on Sundays. She only spoke when absolutely necessary. "Toast." "No thank you." Her voice carried the kind of careful control people only use when they don't trust themselves not to break. I watched every detail. The way she wouldn't look directly at him. The way his eyes lingered just a second too long every time she turned away. The way his smile stayed on his face, but not in his eyes. It wasn't the absence of love. It was the presence of something else. Tension. Expectation. A secret. Something unsaid, like both of them were waiting to see who would step wrong first. Then he looked over at me. "Why you so quiet this morning?" He asked it soft. With a small laugh. But his stare didn't match the sound. I shrugged. Just tired. Lie. His smile didn't move. But the silence after my answer got thick. Mama's hand paused mid-reach for a plate. Tiny moment. But I caught it. She was scared of which way this conversation could go. I don't know what made me do it, but I stood up. "I'm going to the porch." The way Mama exhaled quietly, like she'd been holding her breath, told me everything I needed to know. She was grateful I left. Because somehow, me staying, felt dangerous. Outside, the morning was too calm for what my spirit felt. The breeze was light. The sun clean. But my chest wouldn't unclench. I sat on the porch steps, and before the emotions could drown me, I whispered to myself. Something's wrong. And it's not small. Not confusion. Not sadness. Fear. A fear that didn't belong to me, but was being passed on without a word. And right there, as if the universe wanted to confirm it, I heard the tone. From inside. Not yelling. Not even arguing. Just a change. His voice, now lower. Mama's, now quieter. Words I couldn't catch, but energy I felt like it was being pressed into my skin. My heart started racing. Not because of what I heard, but because of what I couldn't. And if you're here right now, let me just say this. Please stay with me. If you're listening, like, seriously, don't scroll away or click off. Like, hit that subscribe, because if you from my generation, what's coming next, it's gonna make your soul do flashbacks. I pushed the door open, Slow, just enough to see. Not enough for them to realize I was watching. And what I saw wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse. Mama. With tears in her eyes. But smiling. Not happy. Smiling the way people do when they want to survive the moment. And him, leaning just a little too close. Not touching her. But close enough to remind her he could. And in that moment, it wasn't what he was doing. It was what he wanted her to believe he could do. The kind of control you don't need to speak to make clear. That's when it hit me. The real danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it just waits for the door to lock. I could tell the atmosphere had shifted the moment we stepped outside. The sun was still out, but it didn't feel warm anymore. Ravon insisted we all go to a small family-run diner just 10 minutes down the road, said it was tradition for the families to share a little meal together, like a soft welcome. A tradition, I noticed, he mentioned only after he'd already texted them we were on the way. I walked quietly behind them as we headed to the car, pretending like I was just a grateful old woman soaking in the afternoon breeze. In reality, I was watching everything. The daughter-in-law's father, Ed, kept walking just a little ahead, like a man who liked the weight of walking first. The mother, Patricia, did not once look back at me, which told me everything I needed to know. She already believed she'd read me correctly. Poor. Easy. Harmless. That's when I realized, that was the exact role they needed me to play. The diner was small, a worn-down corner spot in Savannah, Georgia, with faded red leather booths and a soft hum of classic soul music playing from the ceiling speakers. A place where people minded their business, and that made it perfect. The kind of place where private conversations could stay private forever. But as soon as we sat, before we could even open the menus, something shifted. Patricia leaned forward, not toward me, but toward my son, the same son she'd praised so politely back at the house. And her voice, Lord, that voice came out with warmth so artificial it could have been bottled in a plastic flower-scented air freshener. So, Ravon baby, your mama always been this quiet? She asked, smiling lightly like she was asking something harmless, but I heard it. Everyone at that table did. They wanted to test how much I'd talk, or how little Ravon would defend me. Ravon laughed it off with that respectful tone he always used. Mama just doesn't talk too much when she don't know people well yet. But I saw the flicker in Patricia's eyes, disappointment. She thought I was going to remain unusable. One thing about controlling people, when they can't use you, they'll try to break you. The first waiter hadn't even taken our drink order yet, but I watched her pivot. Speaking of that, Patricia continued casually, what side of Savannah you'll stay on again? Ray mentioned y'all don't really live near the nice side of town. I smiled softly. I let my shoulders sink, as though her question embarrassed me. Ravon shifted uncomfortably. Mama. I politely cut him off, soft voice. Low eyes. Playing my role perfectly. We stay over near West Victory and Martin Luther, I whispered. Not much to see there. But we get by. A spark. That was it. Her entire posture relaxed. The mother laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, I know that area, she said too casually. Walmart's over there, right? Lot of discount folks that shop there. Now let me be clear, that wasn't ignorance. That wasn't innocent. That was deliberate. Ravon stayed silent, jaw tightening. Her husband, Ed, was watching me closely now. Not in cruelty. In calculation. Evaluating. Whether I was a problem, or a level he could control. That's when the hard-to-explain moment happened. From across the diner, someone was watching me. A woman, probably around 70, sitting by herself at the counter by the pie display. She wasn't eating. She wasn't turning away. She was just watching. Like she knew exactly what was happening. And was waiting to see which version of myself I would choose. But I didn't move. Didn't break role. Patricia continued, lowering her tone now, confidential, false intimacy. You must be so excited, she said to me directly. Your son finally marrying up. She dragged the word up like a blade. I glanced at my son. He looked like someone struggling to breathe. That singular moment. That was when I knew I was no longer just being evaluated. I was being sized. And as an old woman who has seen men buried and crowns melted into dust, I changed the game quietly, without announcing it. Just one small, seemingly fragile line. I leaned forward, soft smile, and whispered, "I am more relieved than excited." Patricia blinked, confused. Relieved? I nodded slowly, like I was confessing something raw. Raising a son alone ain't easy in this world. Good women don't come around often. Her whole expression flickered. It wasn't the answer she expected. I saw her lean back, very slightly, because now she didn't know. Was I harmless? Or was I warning her? Before she could settle into an interpretation, the waitress finally approached. As she took drink orders, I glanced. The older woman at the counter, still watching. But now she was smiling. Like she already knew. That was the first move. And it was mine. The waitress walked away with our drink orders, and for a moment the table fell into an uneasy quiet, the kind that isn't silence at all, but a shift in power that everyone feels at once. Ravon kept rubbing his thumb nervously against his glass. His fiancée, Alana, looked smaller than before. Like a girl who didn't know which parent she was supposed to protect. Her eyes stayed locked on her mother's hands. Not her mother's face, her hands. That told me everything. Patricia didn't look at me again right away. She kept her attention on Ravon instead, as if she knew the best way to get to me was through him. "So," Patricia said lightly, fake warm again. "Ravon." She leaned forward slowly. "Be honest, because I love truth more than politeness. Do you think your mother is ready for a family like ours?" My son froze. It wasn't a question. It was a trap. And the way she said family like ours. She didn't mean wealth. She meant elitism. She meant obedience. She meant we control, you adjust. Ravon looked at me, almost apologetic. That alone hurt more than anything she'd said. But before he could even form a reply, Ed finally spoke. First time all evening. Voice deep. Calm. Too calm. "We're real structured people," he said, never taking his eyes off me. "We don't do surprises. Everything in our family follows family protocol. Order. Tradition. Respect. Tradition." That was the second time they'd used that word today. I knew now, this wasn't just arrogance. This was the testing before the caging. Because these kinds of people don't just want your child. They want your child without you attached to them. I knew that game 20 years ago. I was ready to play it again. But Ravon wasn't. His voice slipped. "Mama's respectful. She just quiet. Don't mistake that." Patricia smiled sweetly. "Oh baby, I don't mistake anything. I was just asking if she understands what she's about to enter into." Enter. As if I were being allowed into something. I placed my hands gently on the table. Still soft. Still small. Still humble. And this time, I spoke up fully. Looking at no one but Alana. "Sweetheart, do you feel safe enough to say what you want? Or do you say what you're allowed to say?" The table froze. Not because of what I asked. But because I did not break character, yet I cut the room open clean. Alana's eyes widened. Her mother's hand clamped lightly over hers, too quickly, like a leash. And behind all that softness, I watched Patricia's eyes turn to something cold. Almost reptilian. A warning look. Not at me. At her daughter. That told me even more than anything said. But it was her husband, Ed, who reacted. Calmly. Too calmly. "You seem like a woman who pays attention," he said softly to me. I didn't blink. I survived because I do. That was the moment. The moment the table recalculated me. Not dangerous. But not breakable. The drinks arrived. No one touched them. Patricia smiled again, but this time it wasn't for show. It was strategic. "Of course she survived," she said quietly. Then her tone shifted, silky. Low. "Meant only for me. But surviving and obeying are two different things. Can you do both?" No one at this table breathed. Even the old woman across the diner stopped eating her pie. Because that was not a test. That was a threat. And I think Patricia expected me to flinch. Or bow. Or smile and deflate before she felt the need to make it worse. Instead, I just smiled kindly and whispered, "Only weak women obey. Strong ones are simply not disrespected twice." And Patricia, for the first time all evening, blinked. Not out of offense. Out of calculated re-evaluation. That's when I knew. She just realized I was not the one being interviewed anymore. She was. Patricia didn't speak for a long moment. She just looked at me, really looked at me, like she was finally trying to understand what kind of woman she was dealing with. Not the kind you intimidate. Not the kind you use. Definitely not the kind you groom. And that's when she changed strategies. She leaned back, slow, elegant, dangerous. And just when I expected her to challenge me, she smiled. Soft. Sweet. Not at me. At her daughter. "Alana," she said gently, "why don't you take Ravon outside for a moment? I want to speak to his mother woman to woman." Ravon straightened immediately. "No. It's fine," I cut in softly. My voice calm, too calm, the kind that makes a room nervous when they don't know why. I looked at my son. "Go on, baby. Help her get a little air." He searched my eyes, saw something there, realized I was prepared for this, reluctantly nodded. Alana moved stiffly, over-aware, but followed. The moment they stepped outside, the air shifted. The waitress passed quietly. The older woman at the counter didn't even pretend to hide her staring now. It was just the three of us at that table. Me, Patricia, and Ed, who I realized then, was not her equal. He didn't move, but I could tell he understood. This was not his part to play. Patricia waited until the diner door closed behind the kids. Then with zero more performance, she dropped her voice low. "In our family," she said quietly, "mothers don't interfere with the order of things once their sons marry. We don't do rebellion. We don't do emotional attachments overriding structure. We don't do women who struggle with letting go." I just watched her, letting her speak, letting her expose everything. She continued, measured, almost polite. "If you want to be respected, be silent. You're welcome, as long as you understand that the mother of a grown man is not a decision-maker. She is a retired presence. A retired presence." That line wasn't meant to offend me. It was meant to assign me a rank. I didn't blink. She wasn't done. "Because I'll warn you gently just once," she said softly, smiling like she was praying for me. "My daughter's life will not be disrupted by a mother clinging to her son." I didn't breathe. But I did smile. Very, very slowly. And Patricia saw it. For the first time in this entire encounter. She looked uncertain. I leaned forward, voice still soft. Still gentle. Still dangerous in ways she couldn't yet understand. "My son is not a possession, Patricia. You don't even realize yet that you are playing a game you have already lost." She frowned. Ed's head turned, sharp. I placed my hands together, calm as evening rain. "You think control is protection," I said. "You think obedience is love. You teach your daughter submission as insurance, not wisdom. You are not preparing her for marriage. You are preparing her to be useful." Patricia's face changed. Not with shame. With exposure. I continued, quieter now. "But I will say this once. And only once." I held her eyes, unwavering. "If my son is ever disrespected, manipulated, or cut off from his mother for someone else's control." A pause. "I bury legacies." That line did not come from a woman bluffing. It came from a woman who had already done it. Patricia froze. And Ed, who had been silent, finally spoke. For the first time, his voice wasn't calm. "Are you threatening us?" I turned to him, finally acknowledging his existence fully. "No," I said softly. "I'm informing you what I don't beg people not to do. I simply return it doubled." The diner felt spiritually quiet. Patricia leaned back, hands laced together, and for the first time all day, did not respond. Her eyes softened, not kindly, but with strategic recalculation. As if realizing she had not invited prey into her daughter's life. She had invited another apex predator. Right then, Ravon and Alana walked back in. And for the first time, Alana looked at her mother, like she didn't quite recognize her. Patricia smiled sweetly again, mask fully back on. Shall we order? But everything had changed. Because from here forward, all masks were cracked. This was no longer an introduction. This was a war about to breathe. The food arrived, but nobody was eating. The air was too still now, not tense, not loud, calculating. Patricia had returned to the performance. The gentle southern wife. The sweet, God-fearing mother. The one who never raises her voice, only repositions the soul of the room with a smile. But she couldn't hide something anymore. Not from me. Not from Alana, not anymore. For the first time, Alana wasn't sitting under her mother. She was sitting beside herself. And she could feel it. She kept looking between us, realizing there had been an entire, invisible war she was never supposed to witness, and that it was never even about her wedding. It was about who got to own her future. Patricia reached for her tea with gentle grace and said to me, softly, "We truly do value order and peace in our family. I hope we can coexist, respectfully." I tilted my head slightly. "In peace," I said calmly, "there is no ownership. Only mutual reverence." We held eye contact. Her smile didn't break. But her spirit finally blinked. Because she finally understood what kind of woman she was dealing with. The kind who does not compete. The kind who does not obey. The kind who does not ask to be respected, but moves the earth until it is rearranged around her presence. Ravon and Alana both felt the shift. You could feel them exhale, not relief. But revelation. Something had just been decided. Not with agreement. With recognition. Patricia folded her napkin. "We'll see you both Sunday," she said to Alana. Family circle before the engagement ceremony. Alana hesitated, then said something I wasn't expecting. Her first act of quiet rebellion. "Actually," she said softly, voice steady. "I think before any family circle, Ravon and I need a smaller one first. Just us. No management involved." Patricia's smile froze, just for a second. Then she recovered. "Of course," she said softly, nodding. But her eyes were on me. Not with hatred. With something else. Warning. Respect. Awareness. Acknowledgement that I was a permanent factor. Outside the diner, the wind had changed, that Georgia heat had lost its weight. Ravon opened the car door for me, but before I could get in, the old woman from the pie counter walked out slowly and stopped beside me. She didn't smile. No greetings. No curiosity. Just a quiet nod. And she whispered so low only I could hear. "Keep that strength soft. A strong woman with no softness turns into the same kind she fights." I did not reply. Because I knew exactly what she meant. Balance. Not destruction. I sat inside the car and closed the door. As we drove, Ravon's hand tightened over the steering wheel like he had to hold back everything he wanted to say. "Mama," he said quietly. But I interrupted him gently. "Just love who you love," I said. "And make sure she is loved, not managed." Alana was in the back seat, hands clasped, eyes heavy. But she lifted her head, met my eyes through the rearview mirror. No words. Just silent, trembling understanding. She now knew what I had sensed walking in. This wasn't a family she was marrying into. It was a legacy of control. And now, she had a choice. And she knew, I would never let her face it alone. Not as long as she moved with dignity. Not as long as love stayed clean. As we turned onto the main road, Patricia's final words quietly echoed back. "Mothers don't interfere." I smiled faintly to myself. I didn't interfere. I protected the future from those who believed they already owned it. That is not interference. That is prevention. If you're listening right now, do you believe love should be protected, or controlled? Tell me honestly in the comments. Your answer reveals more than you think.